Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear, on 11 Alive News Prime Time, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear, on 11 Alive News Prime Time, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Hullinger. This is 11 Alive's special coverage of Congressman John Lewis, who is returning to his adopted home, the state of Georgia, for the final time. And we have a live picture for you at Dobbins Air Reserve Base now, where the body of John Lewis is scheduled to arrive within about the next 20 to 30 minutes. Joining me right now is Aisha Howard. And Aisha, this is the 5th day of tributes. It began in Alabama, continued to Washington, D.C., and now back for the final stop here in Atlanta.
And Jeff, this has been a very historic past 5 days, and people from all over even went to D.C., and especially people from Atlanta were able to travel to Selma, and that was such a historic moment that we brought to you live here on Sunday morning. It has just been a day of tributes for a giant that is so deserving of 5 days, almost 6 days of being laid to rest and allowing the country to come out and remember him. We had our Hope Ford in D.C. for the past couple of days for you. She just showed the magnitude of love and support that he received there in Washington, D.C., even to the point at the U.S. Capitol having to extend the time that he was lying in state there for people to be able to come out. Back here in Atlanta, we have our Nick Sturdivant on the ground for us this afternoon at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. Nick, tell us, what are you seeing out there right now as we prepare for the arrival?
Good afternoon, Aisha. And as Jeff mentioned, Lewis is expected to land just before 12:30. And just to give you a lay of the land, we're right outside of the base, and this is the area where that plane is expected to land. We're set up again here just outside of the base, and once the plane lands, Congressman Lewis and his family will leave here by motorcade and head towards the state capitol. Along the way, they will make some stops, pausing at the Rainbow Crosswalk at 10th Street and Piedmont Avenue. They will also drive through John Lewis Freedom Parkway, which was renamed for him in 2018. The motorcade will also pass through the MLK Historic District, including the birth home of Dr. King. And looking ahead, Lewis's fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, will honor him this evening at the state capitol inside the rotunda. We spoke with the past president of the fraternity, and he talked about Lewis's legacy. Listen in.
John is a member of our Distinguished Service Chapter, which is the highest honor you can get at Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity. And he's a congressman. He's a national figure, and he is very active in our organization. Anytime we call on John, John shows up. He speaks to our undergrads and to the organization at large. Whenever we have a major event, we call on John. John is there.
And as that past president mentioned, John Lewis, late Congressman John Lewis, was a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. That fraternity will honor him tonight again at the state capitol. And again, we're set up outside of the base. We'll be here once that plane lands, and once that plane lands, we'll be here for live coverage. Aisha.
All right, Nick Sturdivant on the ground for us this afternoon. We are waiting for the 12:30 hour. We will take you back to Nick as the casket arrives from D.C. this afternoon. Well, on Sunday, Congressman Lewis crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama one last time. It was such a powerful moment. His casket driven along a path of rose petals in the place where he and so many other civil rights icons were brutally beaten by state troopers. That was 55 years ago, fighting for equality, a fight that never ended for Congressman Lewis until his very final days. Naima Abdullahi has a look at the three-city tribute in Alabama honoring the boy from Troy.
Amazing grace. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound of the feet that walked many miles from town to town, participating in demonstrations to end segregation and remaining dedicated to make this nation a better place for future generations. We shall overcome. As We Shall Overcome turned into Look How Far We Came, you reminded the nation to continue fighting for change. Each time, putting your body on the line, continuing the fight for those who never saw victory in their lifetime.
The idea that we can actually just walk on the bridge, how easy that is, but how difficult it was when John first tried to walk across the bridge.
With your eyes on the prize, you realized The power of unity, community, standing side by side. And when they knocked you down, John Lewis, still you would rise.
We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now.
We're marching today to dramatize to the nation, dramatize to the world.
You ignored Jim's crows and blows to the head and to the legs because the dream inside you, they could not destroy. The same hands that picked cotton in Troy picked up the world with joy.
So to my brother, Robert, this is not a goodbye. It's just a different kind of hello.
He was our brother, Brother Robert. It was no John, it was just Robert. And I loved him.
Every time you were needed, you were there.
That we can talk the talk and we can walk the walk.
For as long as you had breath in your body, you cared.
I'm gonna let it shine for the foot soldiers.
As you continuously fought to reclaim the soul of our nation, you lit the imagination of our generation, and that little light of yours, we will let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Amazing grace.
Amazing grace, oh, how sweet the sound of tears rolling down our face, knowing that you made this world a better place, a spirit so profound. From boycotts to the sit-ins, it's only fitting that the same bridge that nearly took your life is now part of your journey to reunite with the ancestors who stood by your side. Yes, that circle will be unbroken. Generations of ancestors now together, all who were divinely chosen.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around.
The Honorable John Lewis, our favorite boy from Troy. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Oh, what an honorable day. Hope you keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching to the pearly gates.
Marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn.
Naima Abdullahi joining us this afternoon from the Capitol in downtown Atlanta. Naima, let me just tell you about that piece. It's probably my third or fourth time watching it, and I am moved every single time. The tone just really took us back to those times, and the images and seeing the parallel between what you were able to display with the hymns in the background. I just really think it took us to that time, but also brought us to the present with being able to see, you know, just the stark difference of him crossing that bridge, this time with rose petals and such fanfare and adoration for all that he did. You are the epitome of Atlanta culture, and you have been so knowledgeable about Congressman John Lewis and the movement as a whole. You're probably on day 3 or 4 of coverage now. Tell us, what has this moment been like for you on the ground, really seeing it from up close and personal perspective?
You know, as the story was playing, I can hear it as it's playing. I kind of got chills and emotional. What was going through my mind as I was writing that story after the third story that aired in Selma is, he spoke at my high school graduation, and as he cheered me on in my next chapter of life, I now have the honor of doing the same thing for him in his next chapter of life, the afterlife, where his legacy will live on forever. So I sat down and started typing, and I was like, how can I honor a man as he enters his next chapter? Same way he did for me at Decatur High School. And this is a way that I could pay tribute to him, an icon, a legend who helped me live out the American dream because of all the sacrifices he's been able to make. So that's the kind of emotion I was going through. And as we're here right now, we see at every corner of the Georgia State Capitol, there are state troopers positioned. The crowd has not started gathering yet, but everybody is waiting for his ceremonial return to, everyone's been waiting all week for his ceremonial return to Atlanta as his final resting place. John Lewis will be brought here at the Georgia State Capitol in the next hour or so. His family will be present, and a special ceremony will take place in the Rotunda. It's a big day for Georgia, where he served as a member of the Atlanta City Council, then running to become the representative of Georgia's 5th District, holding that position since 1987. Holding that position since 1987 because he cared and he wanted to represent represent the people of Atlanta. And in every aspect of Atlanta, his footprints are everywhere, from John Lewis Freedom Parkway to that Hope mural to another mural on Joseph E. Boone. Every aspect of everything he loved about this city is visible in this city, a city that adopted him. And yes, he was not born here, but we accepted him as one of our own, and we embraced him as one of our own. One of the first moments he visited Atlanta was during the Civil Rights Movement, during the times of organizing and planning and coming together and amplifying the voices of a Black America so that equality could be reached and that equality was achievable. So this is a big day here for the city of Atlanta, for the state of Georgia, and the entire nation as we bid farewell to an icon who's meant so much to our city and our country.
All right, Naima Abdullahi Forrest, we will be coming back to you throughout the afternoon there as the Congressman makes his final trip through the streets of Atlanta, and so many historical landmarks where they are going to stop. This is another live look out at Dobbins Air Reserve. We're not for certain if this is the plane. We're going to get that confirmed for you to see exactly that arrival. Of course, we'll be carrying it here for you live. Jeff, extremely historic day, knowing that this moment has finally made it back to Georgia.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking at the sheet right now as to where the motorcade will pass, and every one of these points in Atlanta have meaning in his public life and his private life as well. At 10th in Piedmont, the Rainbow Crosswalk, very active, tying civil rights to the movement of the LGBTQ community here in our city, our region, and our country as well. Passing an in-town synagogue as well, the great coalition in the 1960s of civil rights between African American leaders and the Jewish community as well, the Christian community. Great symbolism. The John Lewis Hero Mural, which is right next to the boarded up Butler Street YMCA, which holds such importance here in the history of Atlanta. It's where Dr. King learned how to swim, and Vernon Jordan also. When African American police officers first became part of APD, they were unable to dress at headquarters, and at Butler Street YMCA is where they would dress. There was also something called on Wednesdays the Hungry Club Forum, and that is where every leader of white Atlanta, white politicians, black politicians would come to speak to the African American power base of business and politics, and it is there you would seek to be anointed and supported, or at the very least to be heard about what you were trying to accomplish as you were going to run. I always see the board. I see that building boarded up, the Butler Street Y, and I always think, you know what, that building should be saved somehow or another. It's so important in the evolution of Atlanta, racially and with the fall of segregation. It's just such an important landmark. To see it boarded up always makes me sad.
And so many historic places just in that area, in that little pocket alone, Jeff. I was really interested to go back and look at some of the history of the mural because it's become really the epicenter of the celebrations. And so I checked it out and I was like, well, let me learn more about the mural because, you know, we see the picture, we see the quote from the March on Washington, and it was dedicated in 2012. And it was done by an artist named Sean Schwab. I wonder how Sean Schwab is feeling today, just about the fact that his piece is now, you know, the epicenter.
It is. It's great, isn't it?
Such a movement. Yeah.
I mean, every time I drive by there on the freeway, I always look over and, you know, I may be in a hurry to the airport, I may be in a hurry to pick up my kids somewhere, but I always flash to a moment of John Lewis, of his public life, or in my own personal dealings that I've had with him over the last 35, 36 years. And it's great. You know, if you wonder about the power of murals, take a look at that hero mural with John Lewis. And if you've lived here for any period, and if you love this city, or if you follow politics or the history, it's always moving, it's always touching. In fact, Joe Hankey is there right now. He is at the mural downtown. Joe, all yours.
And Jeff, you're right. This definitely is the epicenter over the last couple of weeks of the John Lewis Memorial that has sprung up here in front of the mural. I like to think this mural, you can't come to Atlanta without seeing John Lewis as you drive around the Grady Curve or you're going south down towards the airport. You look over and you see this. I moved to town 4 years ago myself as I was moving from Oklahoma, came through Alabama, came up around the Grady Curve, and this was the first thing I saw as I drove through downtown Atlanta was this John Lewis mural. You can't miss this. We've been seeing people showing up here today, taking their photos once again ahead of John Lewis's motorcade coming downtown and approaching the Capitol. We expect them here sometime shortly before the 1 o'clock hour. Decorating this wall here, of course, some of these flowers now wilting as they've been here for more than a week, but still the John Lewis quotes about voting rights and getting into good trouble. Those stick out, people stopping, taking their photos with those quotes here today in front of the mural. Just behind our camera here, if we spin around, we have Auburn Avenue and Jesse Hill Drive. This is the intersection that John Lewis's motorcade will pass through today. Just to my south, we have the King Center, we have historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. Those are some of the landmarks that John Lewis will pass by with his family. We're told that John Lewis's family, they're expected to pause here at this mural of the late Congressman and take a second here. Depending on the weather, there has been some rain here and there. They might get out here during that motorcade passing. So hopefully we can bring that moment to you live of the Lewis family stopping here at the mural alongside other people that are paying their respects. We're going to stay out here. We'll bring you that moment live as the motorcade passes through historic Auburn neighborhood. But right now we'll send it back to you in studio.
Yeah, you know what, Joe, as I was listening to you and I was looking at the sites around, I saw Jesse Hill's name on the street sign up above, who meant so much in John Lewis's life. Mr. Hill, of course, the insurance executive who funded the civil rights movement in many ways when they were hard up for money, when they needed cash. Jesse Hill was the man that Ambassador Young would go to, that Dr. King would go to. The late Jesse Hill, such a driving force in civil rights here in the United States. And I think for a lot of people since his death, you know, they see that name and it may not mean a lot to them, but it means so much to our city and to our country as well.
Jeff, we want to let the audience know right now that we are looking at live photos of congressional staff members that are getting off of that Delta plane right now at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. So the congressional staff members are going to join those ceremonies from D.C. as we await the plane that will be carrying Congressman Lewis and his family members. That's set to arrive here within the next 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll be sure to bring you that live. For now, we're going to toss to break really quick as we start to gather more information about the route and the timing. Stick around. We'll be right back with special coverage of the arrival of Congressman John Lewis.
19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear.
Welcome back here, 11 Alive News at noon. You are watching special coverage of the return of Congressman John Lewis. The boy from Troy returns for one final time to his adopted hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. You are taking a live look at Dobbins Air Reserve Base right now, where we are expecting the plane to arrive from D.C. in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. The plane carrying the congressional staff members from D.C. has already arrived. We do understand that the family members of Congressman Lewis will also be on the plane ride with him. We do have a crew on the ground there. It is going to be a very historic route through the city of Atlanta as we take that trip along with Congressman Lewis and so many community members coming out to honor him before he lies in state at the Capitol later this afternoon. And Jeff, I've really enjoyed doing this coverage with you because you bring such a unique perspective with that personal touch in all the times that you encountered Congressman Lewis on a professional level, and then over the years it became a friendly level, even run-ins at the grocery store. And I know you talked to people over the past couple of weeks who knew him very, very well.
Yeah, and among those that I have talked to was Atlanta City Councilman Michael Julian Bond, who is the son of Julian Bond, one of the great leaders of the civil rights era. He was such a star in this country. He hosted Saturday Night Live, and along with John Lewis, they were like brothers. They were so close in their battles in the 1960s toward voter rights and in the movement. And in 1986, these two brothers, and Michael Julian Bond is the godson of John Lewis, opted to run against each other in the 5th Congressional District. It is one of the most fabled races in the history of the state of Georgia. It was brutal. It is something that 100 years from now people will still be reading about and bantering about in some university political science classes somewhere in this country. And I talked with Councilman Bond today about that relationship, and as it changed, they were at war with each other, and it was something to see. Men of completely different styles. And certainly Congressman Lewis, who won 52 to 48% over Julian Bond, it was bare knuckle fight. He accused Julian Bond of corruption, implied drug use, and said that he overstated his civil rights role. And that was just a part of what 1986 brought to the city of Atlanta in the 5th Congressional District. Congressman Lewis ended up winning the seat narrowly with the support of white voters who were, of course, a minority in the 5th Congressional District in 1986. But here's part of my conversation that I had with Councilman Bond about an hour ago. John Lewis and your father in 1986 is for the history books. It is something that I think scholars will be looking at 100 years from now when they talk about the evolution of Atlanta politically and socially. And how our city certainly has changed when these two great giants of the civil rights movement clashed over the 5th Congressional District seat.
Well, I think it's important. Thank you for having me, Jeff. But I think it's important for historians and even current day folks to realize that there's a prehistory there other than just that race. I mean, these were two men who were the best of friends, were best friends. John Lewis, and his wife Lillian are my godparents. We essentially did everything together leading up to that race. And then people forget that that wasn't John's first attempt at going to Congress. He had run unsuccessfully against White Fowler, where he was presumed to be the winner, and people forget that my father was his campaign manager.
Wow.
So this is a very, it's a tragic story in some ways, but it's great. It's a great story in other ways, how these two men who politically were identical, that had the same dreams, that had the same goals, and had a deep friendship for one another, eventually had those dreams kind of clash, back in '86.
And for those who are watching right now that are new to Atlanta, it was, to put it mildly, a spirited contest between two men who agreed mostly on everything, but their personal styles were very, very different in terms of their background, in terms of how they arrived at their point in life, and really how they interacted with people as well. Just different, no criticism from either man, but just different approaches.
Well, yeah, they were very different, and they did come from disparate backgrounds. You know, John came from, you know, a farming community down in Alabama. My father was raised on college campuses the majority of his life, to probably right around his 18th birthday, when my grandfather came to teach at Atlanta University here. But they did have so much in common with what they believed in. They met in February of 1960 at the formation conference of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and they had been friends and almost inseparable intellectually and as friends from that point on until the '86 campaign. So, you know, but they were a good complement to one another.
Councilman Bond also tells the story, a very amusing story of when his godfather, John Lewis, would take him to a Braves game when he was a kid, and Congressman Lewis would have a Rich's shopping bag full of food. And the congressman would make the hot dogs, and Councilman Bond, who was about 7 or 8 at the time, was just furious with John Lewis because he wanted to eat all the food at the stadium, all the garbage food, the cotton candy and the peanuts and all that stuff.
That was too expensive.
But John Lewis was prepared. And that's right, it was expensive. So John Lewis was prepared. He had a Rich's shopping bag full of hot dogs and snacks. And he would be there in a suit and tie watching the game in the midst of the humidity and the heat and trying to keep the kids under control.
Another live look, Jeff, here at Dobbins Reserve. So many great memories. We are expecting the plane to arrive. We're counting down probably in the next 5 minutes or so. We're going to take a quick break and stick around. We'll be right back as we follow the homecoming of Congressman John Lewis.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Prime Time, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or
Welcome back here to 11 Alive News at noon. You are watching special coverage remembering Congressman John Lewis. The congressman will return to his adopted home state of Georgia here coming up in the next few minutes. We are watching a live picture of Dobbins Air Reserve Base where that plane is expected to land here. On the ground, we have our Nick Sturdivant monitoring the situation there. Nick, a very historic moment, a very historic time. This is the first location of many that will honor the late congressman here as he takes a final trip through the streets of his adopted hometown of Atlanta. Tell us, what are you seeing there right now? I know the congressional staffers have already arrived.
Yeah, Aisha, I keep checking my watch because he's supposed to be here any moment now, but sort of the scene and sort of the lay of the land. We're right outside of the base. You see the fence behind me. This is the view from where that plane will land. There was sort of a sense of false hope. You know, we got a small group out here waiting to watch the plane land over here at the base, and everyone got excited, and we thought that was Congressman Lewis, only to find out that was the congressional staff. But people have been here. They've been waiting for the past couple of hours. The group has sort of grown a little bit through the rain. People have not moved. They want to see this plane land. It means a lot to them. And talking to a couple of the folks, it means a lot for them to be out here. Now, we don't know which way the motorcade is going to come, if it's going to come this direction or if it's going to go straight to I-75. But we're still out here. We're hunkered down. We're waiting for that plane to land. And again, it's expected to land any moment now.
And Nick, so you've been out there all morning, and what are we sort of expecting? I think it's Willie A. Watkins that's on the scene there, the local funeral home that will be taking care of the arrangements. So what can people anticipate to be able to see exactly where you are? I know a lot of people are going to be gathering at along the entire route, but what are we going to get from that scene? Is it a pretty good spot for people to take this in?
Well, Aisha, it's definitely a good spot to see the plane land. Now, whether the motorcade comes this direction, we're actually away from I-75, and where Dobbins is set up, you get you leave the entrance sort of exit of Dobbins and you hit 75. So I don't know if the folks here will be able to see the motorcade, but the first stop of the motorcade will be the Rainbow Crosswalk, and then it will go to John Lewis Freedom Parkway and make its way to the Mural and then to the state capitol. But this is wow. So we see the plane landing now. As I speak right now, the plane is landing. Our photographer, Stephen Boise, took the camera off the tripod. You can see it coming down now. Folks, you see, have their cameras out, their camera phones out. And it's just landed. It'll go straight off to the distance, and it will park past this tower to my right. And again, the late Congressman has just landed here at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. There's a small group out here. You see people smiling, taking pictures. And again, this is a big moment for them. They've been out here. They've weathered a couple of rain showers and again, a special moment. But again, to answer your question from before, not sure if the motorcade will go past this area where we are. We're sort of in the shopping center area, or if it will go straight down 75 headed towards the state capitol. Aisha?
We've taken the live image full there of the plane just hitting the runway, touching down at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. Nick Sturdivant on the ground for us. Thank you so much, Nick. As we see, it is 12:32 and the late Congressman has landed. We can hear some of the people in the background reacting to the plane finally touching down. A lot of people just really trying to find their best spot, which is why I was asking Nick, what can we expect to take in there? You're going to have so many opportunities around the city, and I can really anticipate if it's going to be anything like in D.C. at the Capitol, where they had to extend the hours to just give people the amount of time that they needed to come and see because the crowds were so big. Also keeping in mind we have to social distance, and so we can anticipate long lines at the Capitol. So if you don't want to be a part of that, several locations around the city, as Nick mentioned, the Rainbow Crosswalk at 10th and Piedmont there in Midtown. The Congressman very instrumental in fighting for not only civil rights but LGBTQ rights as well. They're passing a local synagogue and then heading to John Lewis Freedom Parkway, which was named after the Congressman in 2018. So various locations for you to head to. Another very telling location, the Martin Luther King Jr. Historic District, including the birth home of Dr. King, one of his very, very great friends, marching alongside Dr. King in the civil rights movement there in the 1960s. So a very historic moment for the city of Atlanta that really, really carried the civil rights movement on its back, really the epicenter of what was happening all throughout the South, and these great men risking their lives. And this is the result of a celebration for someone who was willing to put their life on the line for equality and justice for all people. voting rights. Very interesting, the fact that he was fighting for voting rights as we are in the midst of approaching the 2020 presidential election, with the voting rights bill currently on the floor as we speak. Very monumental here. So we do see that first plane with the congressional members, and we understand that the congressman's family is on the plane with him as well. We're going to get this live picture of them deplaning and loading the casket into the hearse there that will start the procession route through the city of Atlanta. And this has really been a very big 5-day celebration, starting in Alabama with crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and then going to DC, where he spent more than 30 years serving the people of the 5th District here in Atlanta. Naima Abdullahi has been following this since the very beginning. And Naima, we do know that the plane has touched down. They're going to be headed your way here in the next couple of hours there at the Capitol. Tell us what you see. We're going to keep the full picture up of the plane, Naima, but tell us what you see there outside the Capitol.
As the countdown continues for his ceremonial return to the Georgia State Capitol, the roads are starting to close, and we want to give you guys an image of that. Washington Street right behind us is closed off. There is no access to Mitchell Street at that intersection. And if we pan all the way to the left, Martin Luther King Jr. Drive is also starting to be closed off. There are fire trucks from the Atlanta Fire Department where they put a big ceremonial flag right at that intersection to honor Congressman John Lewis, the Honorable John Lewis, who held his position for the 5th District since 1987. And as Jeff mentioned, that was the year that he ran against Julian Bond, another civil rights icon who did so much for the city of Atlanta. Now, one thing we also want to share with you guys is when we went to Troy and when we went to Selma, and we've been also talking to people here in Atlanta, depending on at what point in his life you met him, you would refer to him as something different. Many people called him Congressman. Some people simply knew him as John Lewis. Others knew him as a civil rights icon. But there were also people who simply knew him as Robert. To his hometown, he went by his middle name. His family called him Robert. His mother called him Robert. His siblings, everybody in Troy referred to him as Robert. Where outside of Troy, you knew John Lewis, but in Troy, he simply went by the name Robert. And he did so much for the city of Atlanta. We're still waiting for more to happen right now. State troopers are positioned all throughout the Capitol at every corner. There are people starting to gather right now. There is not a large crowd because at this very moment it is raining. The rain is spotty, but because of the rain, I think that's going to limit some people, but that hasn't stopped those who want to honor a man for a historic moment in history where they can say thank you for all you've done and job well done. We'll continue to monitor outside of the state capitol and bring you guys live coverage on air and online. Back to you.
All right, Naima, stick around with me here for a second. So we are watching the plane. We have you in a double box. We're going to take the plane back full now as they are getting ready to open the doors to let the family out and to remove the casket as it loads up onto the hearse to start the journey. Just to give you an idea, if you guys are interested in heading out to the Capitol, they should be there within the next hour or hour and a half there. We're just a little bit behind the schedule that we have here, so you still have time to make it out, have time to let the rain let up a little bit, but they're going to start the ceremony there for Congressman Lewis at 2 o'clock at the Capitol Rotunda, but the public is going to be able to come out from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock this evening there. And if you want to go to that location, that will be available all the way up until 7 o'clock ahead of the funeral services, which are private tomorrow. So plenty of opportunities for you to pay your respects. There's going to be a program there at the Capitol Rotunda as well, including Governor Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, along with other state representatives, and we're going to bring you guys some of that coverage too. And if you miss any of the coverage, we're also streaming, or if you have to jet away from the TV, you can find us on the go on the 11 Alive YouTube channel as well. We do understand that Congressman Lewis and his family, they're going to get out of the car at the Mural to really take in that moment. We're going to bring you that live. That's where we have our Joe Hankey at the Mural. And if you know, that's where people have been coming out. And on social media, I saw a lot of people, you know, we've been seeing the photos of people who had that one-on-one encounter with Congressman Lewis. But what has been so touching to see is the amount of people that never met him, But when they went out to the mural to pay their respects to a man they never met, a lot of people really expressed that they were just overcome with emotion and they really couldn't describe why. And I think not being able to describe why just really speaks to the magnitude of the impact that he had on just so many generations with serving this city for more than 30 years. And Naima, I know you are from Atlanta. You grew up here in Atlanta. What has that moment been like for you? I know you told us the moment of him speaking at your high school graduation. So many people are left with so many great memories.
What that moment is for me is we are at the intersection of two generations where we're watching our icons and our elders become ancestors. And what you really reflect on is what can we gain from that generation to make sure that we maintain that audacity, we maintain that Black excellence, and we maintain that history to make sure that we never forget what happened in this nation, whether it's the span of 400 years or whether it's acknowledging what happened in the 60s. So for a lot of people in the city of Atlanta, this young generation that wants to figure out how can we use this moment to fuel us so that we can make a big impact in our city and our nation, this is a moment. And as we saw the protests nationwide and international unfold when George Floyd passed away, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, there were so many people at the protests who were wondering what's next. And what's next is someone to use that moment to inspire them and to step into a position of leadership to lead their communities to what that next step looks like. So as I reflect on this very moment, I reflect on how this generation could use this moment to inspire them to step into leadership roles, to step into roles of unifying our communities and building bridges of understanding. So it's definitely a lot to take in.
And I thought it was so just the timing of everything that, the congressman passed away in the height of protests. And a lot of people, this is their first time protesting, Naima. This is their first time really hitting the streets. And it wasn't as organized on some nights as we saw when things boiled over in Atlanta. There wasn't a true leader. And I think us having to reach back in history and tell the story of Congressman Lewis and how he operated and how he moved with the SCLC and just sort of how they set things up. I think a lot of those people who have the desire to be activists and to be on the front line, they're really learning like, oh, wait a minute, like this is how this was done. This is how they organized. This is how they brought about change.
Yes, and a lot of people were reflecting on the fact that, as Jeff mentioned earlier, every leader has had his own style of leading. John Lewis had his own style. Dr. King had his own style. Hosea Williams, his style included a little bit of agitation and to frustrate the system, and it worked for him. Stokely Carmichael had his own style. Everyone had their own style, and what this generation is trying to do is what is the best style and the best approach for this very moment. And John Lewis acknowledged that this young generation has their own way of wanting to do things, but there's always one thing that should be the foundation of it all: bringing the community together and not creating separation within the community. If that foundation is there, then it doesn't matter whose methods and which aspects of which leader you take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. By the end of the day, nonviolence and what John Lewis stood for is not something of just the past. It's something that can remain relevant for any future generation.
And I also think what's so interesting is the fact that we still have something to protest about. There is still something to fight for. And so with that being the case, we really can sort of copy and paste from the movement, and you can extract from the movement, because now that these leaders, as you mentioned, Naima, these leaders are becoming ancestors, you can't let it die because there is still something to fight for.
Absolutely. Where the sacrifice back then meant putting your body on the line, putting your blood on the line, and, marching from city to city 100 miles, which could have taken weeks, where you pop up different locations, churches took you in while you were en route to the other location. Now it's also a psychological battle, a battle of, really dismantling systemic racism. And that battle is a battle that may continue for many more years to come, but it still requires the same discipline, the same same organization, the same unity to make sure that those systems are also broken down so that equality is reached not only in the history books, not only in, you know, legislations and different things like that, but it's reached within the heart of our communities.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, the city of Atlanta is transforming. You know, with gentrification and revitalization, different groups of people now have no other option but to face the reality of how can we understand each other, because they're right next door to each other.
Yeah.
So hopefully this movement and what has happened in the past can really forge the kind of conversations we need, so as our city continues to transform, we're ready for it, and that, you know, we can definitely all understand each other from different backgrounds.
And Naima, right now we are having a live picture up of the family of Congressman John Lewis deplaning from where the plane that brought the body in. Let's bring Nick Sturdivant, who is at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. Nick, tell us about the moment that that plane landed and what you're seeing right now here.
Yes.
You know, Aisha, I think I said, oh, wow, as soon as that plane landed, because, you know, as far as, you know, our last live shot, I was looking at my watch and I was saying any minute the plane will land. And as soon as that plane landed, you know, you heard cheers, I saw tears, and there were people that were just wrapped up in the moment. It was a very emotional moment. I spoke with one lady off camera. She told me that, you know, this is a sad moment, you know, because he's no longer with us, but this is a celebration of the late Congressman Lewis. And they were just so excited. It was a small group. They've been out here for a couple of hours. They braved some of the light rain showers just to see that plane land. And for them, they were taking pictures, they were hugging. A lot of the people here in the group followed each other on Instagram, and they said this is a moment in history for them, and this is a big moment, again, an emotional moment. We're further down on Cobb Parkway, away from where we believe that motorcade will go down on I-75. We're in this small shopping center right outside of the base, but again, a very emotional moment. You know, I know we're in a pandemic, but people were hugging. I mean, it just tells the story of how people were feeling once that plane arrived and once it did land.
And Nick, you mentioned the pandemic. We do like to take note and acknowledge that even in this time where people want to be together, we are seeing everyone with the mask on. So that is very encouraging as they, you know, want to engage with one another. And I'm just thinking about watching the amount of family members and probably a couple of staffers too that are getting off the plane right now. You know, usually when you have a family member that passes on, you may have 1 or 2 days of celebration, but just really lifting this family up and thinking about them right now because they've gone through so many ceremonies. So in a way, I hope that what's being done is bringing them comfort and is, you know, showing them the magnitude. You know, when you have a larger than life person and a person that's revered as an icon in the family, you know, like Naima said, they called him Robert. Maybe they didn't look at him in that way. So right now they're feeling just how big his impact was and feeling how big his life was. This is their third state traveling to like this to celebrate their loved one. I think that's huge, but it also can probably be a little emotionally taxing, Nick. As you mentioned, some people out there shed a few tears as the plane came down.
Yeah, and I think people that were here and even the family could find some solace in the fact that, yes, he was a larger-than-life figure. He's a civil rights icon. I mean, the list goes on, but, I mean, he was human at the end of the day. He made you, when you spoke with him, I've interviewed him a few times, he just made you feel like you were the only person in the room or in the area. And before the plane landed, you know, the hour leading up, when we were setting up for the noon show, you know, everyone had a John Lewis story, and I think you'll find that over today and tomorrow, people here in Atlanta, everyone has a John Lewis story. And even though he is a civil rights icon, larger than life, I think people saw him as their grandfather, their uncle, their cousin, their brother, a family member.
Yeah, we were able to share the story yesterday of his barber in D.C. Our sister station there in D.C. were able to track down his barber, and it just shows just the level of people that he had contact with, not just dignitaries and other elected officials. He was really a man of the people. coming out to the Black Lives Matter mural there in Washington, D.C. when it was unveiled. And this was just over the last month. So battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and us not knowing that we were seeing him in that moment in his final days, but still got dressed, put on a mask, grabbed his cane, and did not miss that historic moment coming out to the Black Lives Matter mural in Washington, D.C., as so many people around the nation saw that that was the first location that had the big Black Lives Matter mural unveiled on the streets of their city. We are waiting, Nick, for the casket to be unloaded from the plane. We see the family members and we see members of the military there waiting to receive that casket properly. And when that moment happens, we're going to bring it to you live and just allow us to just, sort of take in that moment as they get ready to start the procession around the city of Atlanta, hitting so many important landmarks and just really thinking about what each of those locations mean to the city of Atlanta. The Rainbow Crosswalk, not just being a man to fight for civil rights, but also for the rights of the LGBTQ community as well. His relationship with the Jewish community, really, really monumental in bridging the gap. He will pass by a local synagogue as well before hitting up more notable historic locations as part of the movement, including the Martin Luther King Historic District and the birthplace of MLK, and going by John Lewis Freedom Parkway, which was renamed after him in 2018. We're going to pause now to bring you the moment that the casket is unloaded from the plane received by the U.S. military. You are watching live images from Dobbins Air Reserve Base as we set to begin the procession of the late Congressman John Lewis, who has arrived back in his adopted hometown of Atlanta. It is going to be a day of honoring him all throughout the city. He has crisscrossed the country from Alabama to the nation's capital and now back here in Atlanta, just showing the magnitude of a life well lived and a life that deserves to be honored as he comes to his final resting place here, with a final celebration set to happen tomorrow. We are about 20 to 30 minutes behind on the procession, but that is good news because it gives you time if you do want to go out. I'm going to give you guys a rundown of the procession here as they set to leave Dobbins, as we see them taking off right now. So the first stop is going to be at the Rainbow Crosswalk. They're going to pause there at 10th and Piedmont. So if you are in the Midtown area, you can head to that location. And then they're going to make their way through Midtown as they head downtown to stop at John Lewis Freedom Parkway, and then passing through several civil rights historic sites, including the Martin Luther King Jr. Historic District and the birth home of Dr. King. And then they will have a pretty special moment there at the John Lewis Hero mural there in downtown Atlanta on Auburn Avenue. The family is expected to get out of the vehicle at that time and pay tribute there. The mural has been a huge epicenter of celebrations here for Congressman Lewis in Atlanta. Very important spot. The SCLC headquarters is going to be a location too. The Equitable Building, which is where the office of Congressman Lewis was as he represented his district here in Atlanta, the 5th District. Then they're going to stop by the Elbert P. Tuttle U.S. Court of Appeals building before heading to the state capitol. That's where we find our Naima Abdullahi. Naima, they are starting the journey headed your way. I know you said a small crowd was gathering. Has the rain let up and the crowd thickened up a little bit out there? I know they were getting the roads all ready to receive the congressman properly there at the state capitol.
Right. The roads are starting to be closed off. Like I mentioned earlier, the crowd has not gathered yet. I think people are in tune with the schedule and they're going to start arriving at a specific time. Now, I want to bring a little bit of attention to Willie A. Watkins, who is tasked with providing the honorable ceremonial services for Congressman John Lewis. Willie A. Watkins Funeral Home was established in Atlanta's historic West End in 1982. And on July 17th, he got a phone call from John Lewis's family and C.T. Vivian's family, two civil rights legends we lost on the same day. And he provided the services. And not only that, but he also provided the services for Coretta Scott King, Evelyn and Joseph Lowry, Joseph E. Boone, Leroy Johnson, and Herman Russell. This is someone families rely on to give the right kind of tribute for someone that meant so much to the city of Atlanta and to our nation. Willie A. Watkins, we saw the services in Troy. We saw the elaborate services in Selma. And then we also saw the services in D.C. And it's something that he takes on to make sure that he gives one last honorable ceremony for people who meant so much to so many people all over the world. And that is just something that I wanted to bring attention to. Now, John Lewis always knew that it wasn't just him, that was responsible for the movement. It was Dr. King, Hosea Williams, Ralph Abernathy, the list goes on. But he also made sure that the women of the movement were not forgotten. Ella Baker, Diane Nash, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ruby Doris Smith Robinson. These were people who sacrificed just as much as he did, and when he got the spotlight for being one of the faces of the movement, he made sure he shared that spotlight so that no one was forgotten in the history books. Right now, outside the state capitol, state troopers are right outside. I don't know, we're going to try to pan over so you guys can see. They also, in the staircase that you also see ahead of us, they also took down the gate that was in front of that staircase because this is going to be one of the entry points. And all the different sides, Mitchell Street is closed off, Washington is closed off, and also Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. street is also closed off. So every street is closed off at every corner. The countdown begins, and we're waiting for that ceremonious arrival so that he can get the proper tribute inside the state capitol. Confirmed Brian Kemp, confirmed Keisha Lance Bottoms, confirmed also other politicians as well, in addition to the family, and they'll also be inside. We do have a live stream inside the state capitol, so when that happens, we'll be able to give you guys a view of what's happening inside as well.
All right, Naima, we do want to let people know they are anticipating big crowds to come out despite the on and off rain that we're having today. So the public viewing, you know, that ceremony is going to start at 2 o'clock, which is for dignitaries like Governor Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. But we do really want to let the public know that this moment is about them as well, to pay tribute. So that first public viewing, that is going to be from 3 to 7, which does include the ceremony from his fraternity brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, a historically black fraternity. And also the hours have been extended, so you're going to have another opportunity from 8:30 to 10 p.m. for the public viewing. So 3 to 7 and then 8:30 to 10 p.m. to view Congressman Lewis as he lies in state at the state capitol building. We see the procession is making its way through the streets of Metro Atlanta, with the first stop being the Rainbow Crossing there in Midtown. We're giving you multiple images here of
Christy,
what's taking place. Naima, we're going to keep you with us here for a little bit as we get ready to watch this procession and the multiple stops as people in Atlanta finally have their opportunity. We've gone from Alabama to DC. Now we're on I-75 here in the city as we are welcoming him back. Hi, Naima. Yes.
Hi, we want to show you guys, are we able to show you guys a live image of people gathering, writing on a big poster board, writing tributes for Congressman John Lewis? Are you guys able to take us right now?
Yeah, we got you, Naima. You're in a double box.
So we have about 30 or 40 people at Washington and Mitchell who are gathering outside on a big poster board writing tributes for him. The crowd is small, but everyone is waiting for their moment to write on that board. The board says your bravery and your sacrifice is something that we'll always appreciate, will always be appreciated. This is their way of honoring Good Trouble. This is their way of honoring an icon, a legend, an elder, and now an ancestor. And you see people picking up markers to write their tributes. Now, I'm going to try to have a moment to speak with the man in the blue hat, because I was talking to him in the middle of my live shots. I was having conversations with him, and he said he traveled to Troy. He traveled to Selma, he traveled to DC, and he just now got back to Atlanta. So this is someone with a heavy heart and a purpose to get the message across that Good Trouble transformed this nation for the better, and hopefully we can have a moment to talk with him. But as you can see, his kind gesture has attracted a crowd that wants to participate in his efforts to honor a legend. And Luke Carter is getting a little bit closer so you guys can see exactly what is on that poster board.
And Naima, what I love about this so much is the fact that this isn't his original hometown. I wish you could have been able to see the amount of family members that got off that plane, and they're going to be able to feel his reach in Atlanta. The family members from Alabama and even loved ones who may, be coming from DC. This is just really going to be a huge show of support as they ride through Atlanta and see what his impact meant here.
Absolutely, and the sign also says, always remembered, forever our hero. And I'm going to try to hand the mic over to the gentleman. I'm going to stay further away from him, but I'm going to try to talk to him so that he can share his story with us. Sir, could we talk to you live on air?
Yeah, how you doing?
Could you hold this?
Sure.
Tell us about this sign and exactly what inspired you to do this.
It's really not a sign. If you look in the front and look in the middle, it's a sympathy card. It's the world's largest sympathy card. My name is Bruce Griggs, and Congressman Lewis meant a lot to me, not only to me, but to all the kids in my youth agency. We've been doing these large, gigantic cards for a lot of people, but nobody who's touched the lives of my kids and the community like Congressman Lewis. I met him 25 years ago when I first started out working in the community. and Senator Horace Tate, who's my godfather, introduced him to me. And Greg Street and I do what's called the Boys to Men Lock-In, or overnight rites of passage. And Senator Tate was like, look, I got somebody who would be great to talk to the kids. That was the first time I met Congressman Lewis. From that time on, he started to invite our kids to his office in Washington, D.C. every summer. And so with a person with a heart like his, we need a card as big as that. So that's why we're doing this. I've been to, I'm bragging about my mask. Look at my mask. I've been to Troy, Alabama. I've been all over Alabama. I've been to Washington, D.C. I just returned from Washington, D.C., and now I'm here in Atlanta. On Friday after the funeral, we're going to make a very, very big announcement about something special that we're doing in Congressman Lewis's behalf. If you're interested in trying to help us, look up our information. It can be under Bruce W. Griggs. What inspired me to travel all over? Well, Congressman Lewis had a saying that me and him used to say in private. The more you know, the more you owe. I owe this to him. Yeah, I would not be where I am as a nonprofit agency and as an individual without Congressman Lewis being a part of what I call my mentoring pool. He was part of the people who made me who I am today. So that's why we're doing this. It's not about me. It's about showing Congressman Lewis some love. And look at all the people. Look at some of the stuff that they're writing. It ain't even about me. So, thank you all for giving us some time. All right.
And like he said, the more you know, the more you owe. Let me say that again. The more you know, the more you owe. And exactly what that means is he was so inspired by Congressman John Lewis that not only did he make this sign, but he was willing to travel from Alabama, D.C., back to Atlanta to make sure that he's a part of every celebrations of life for the congressman. And that is just something that that you have to be moved spiritually, you have to be moved mentally to want to do that for him. And now he's making an impact in Atlanta with this sign. It is drawing a crowd, and they're writing so many different things. So they're writing their names, they're writing keep the faith, they're writing rest in power. Thank you for all you do, and we're so grateful that you were here in our nation. Keep the faith. Thank you, thank you. It's filled with so many thank yous and condolences because that's the kind of impact that he made in our city, in our nation, and all over the world. Back to you.
Naima, thank you. As we see Congressman Lewis here traveling, and we've heard that gentleman talking about the issue of traveling as well. The first time that Congressman Lewis became aware of segregation, he traveled to Buffalo when he was 11 years old from Troy, and he saw that northern cities were not segregated on buses, not in schools, not in institutions. So he became acutely aware of segregation at that point in his life. And when he came back, he heard Dr. King on the radio in 1955 when he was just a young person, and it began to trigger thoughts about trying to make a difference. And he met Rosa Parks when he was 17, and the first time that he met Dr. King was as a teenager a year later when he was 18. So travel has always been a part of his life, and it's always represented an understanding of the world beyond where he lived. He traveled all over the country, traveled weekly between Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, and travel was as much a part of his life as his DNA. It just opened doors for him. It opened a consciousness of race in the United States and an understanding of how things need to be better, how they could be better by seeing different geographic regions in the United States. And it began as a young boy when he was 11 and making that trip from Troy to Buffalo, New York.
And Jeff, one of the social media stories that I saw that really stuck out, one of my sorority sisters is a flight attendant with Delta. And she talked about the impact that he had. They were on the same travel schedule, with her being based in Atlanta, him having to fly to Atlanta, that DC to Atlanta commute. And it doesn't matter how many years they overlapped, he always would say, hey, you headed home? We're headed home. And it was just those little small encounters that you had, especially with his routine and the people that he saw along his routine and fighting for justice all across the country. So from the story we shared yesterday with the barber who has this awesome photo with his 4-year-old son now with the congressman, to the flight attendants that he encountered on that DC to Atlanta commute. And then just to see Mr. Griggs here, this guy say, you traveled so much, you did so much for us. During a pandemic, I am going to go from Troy, Alabama to Washington, D.C., now back to Atlanta. Such a great find from Naima on the ground there, finding this gentleman. And it just really, really grabs at your heart when you think about yourself to say, how many impactful relationships do I have? How do I impact just everyday people on my trip to the grocery store, in our community? Am I reachable? Am I touchable? Am I impactful? And I think we're learning so much about all of those different areas of his life where, despite who he was, people would just cry seeing him and wanting to take pictures. Jeff, you said he was always so humble and was going to take the photos and was going to give people, you know, this great experience. And I think what we're seeing from these celebrations is that it wasn't talking the talk. It was a man who truly walked the walk in that regard.
Well, he was reelected 16 times in the 5th Congressional District, which historically has been a very liberal district, perhaps the most in the state of Georgia. And, you know, he garnered over 70% of the vote most of the time. I had one guy come up to me who was running against him a number of years ago, who I can't remember his name at this point, but he got on me and said, you know, you guys in the media, you don't give anybody a fair shot, on and on and on, complaining about coverage as he was running against John Lewis. And I said, you know, I said, with all due respect to you, I said, you're going to get between 13 and 15% of the vote, no matter what you do. I mean, it is a mountain of which you cannot climb, but go for it.
Go for it.
But there is no one that is constricting your ability to best John Lewis in the 5th Congressional District. If you think that those of us that are reporters somehow or other are an obstacle toward you having a fair shot, I said, truth be told, you know, John Lewis doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're running. You're just not going to do very well, and this is what you're going to do. And that was the case every time since 1987. And being in Congress is a very tough job because you're constantly running for re-election. You never stop. You're always running, and it means that you can't really be anywhere very long, whether it's Washington, D.C., or here in Atlanta. You're constantly running for office. You're trying to touch your constituents, yet at the same time you're trying to make an impact in D.C. It is a job that is not for everybody, but John Lewis, no matter your politics, made it work for himself. I mean, it's amazing. He was constantly in the air, constantly traveling in his district, and he was seen in his district. It wasn't like, you know, some people in Congress go to Washington, D.C., and they sort of lose their connection oftentimes with their district. They become creatures of Washington, D.C. But John Lewis was never that way, man. He was everywhere in the 5th District, you know, and we've talked about this before, Aisha. You know, I've seen him over the years in the Kroger at Ansley shopping at various times, and you know, he was the Pied Piper of Hamelin. People would follow him from aisle to aisle, wanting his time, wanting a handshake, wanting a picture. And he was always patient. He was never in a hurry. It must have been madness for him to go shopping because everybody wanted a picture. And we've seen that since his death. If you look at Facebook, you look at Twitter, you look at Instagram, it seems like everybody had
Everyone
a picture.
has a picture,
Yeah,
right?
everybody has a picture with John Lewis. You know?
The memories are endless. And I really do think it's a good example for people who may be considering a career in politics. How do you do this? How do you really still stay connected to the people that you're serving?
I don't know how you do it, but John Lewis is one of the few people in Congress who really figured it out. You know, when you look at Congress today, you know, some really talented people, both Republicans and Democrats, opt not to stay. I mean, I'm thinking about Tom Graves in Northwest Georgia, who is a relatively young man who successful, loved in his district, and he has opted not to run for re-election. And I think that's the case in a lot of places around the country. They feel like they're not making a difference in the House, that they're part of a collective group. And John Lewis certainly was part of the collective group, but again, never losing touch with his constituents. And I thought he had an interesting soundbite that we have been running the past couple of days about the number of people who come to Washington, D.C. in elected roles who say how much they hate government and they lament government and they loathe it. And his point was, well, if you hate government, why are you a part of it? You know, wanting to make a difference And government can do that. It can change people's lives in the right hands. And certainly in the 5th Congressional District, as you take a look at those 16 re-election campaigns that John Lewis waged successfully, they believe that he made a difference, and he did make a difference.
Jeff, we are watching live from above right now where the motorcade, the Willie A. Watkins hearse carrying the body of Congressman John Lewis, followed by a busload of congressional staffers and family members that have been traveling with the congressman from state to state as he is being honored. We understand as we look at this aerial view that they are about a mile away from the 10th Street exit, where they will stop at the 10th and Piedmont Rainbow Crosswalk. Jeff, let's talk about the significance of that moment, because I don't know if people really know the depth of involvement that Congressman Lewis had and why this would be on the list of stops.
Well, he is one of the first to really embrace LGBTQ rights among the old guard of the civil rights. You know, it was kind of a slow go for the most part.
Yeah.
And you can take a look at, you can Google the subject and it will give you certainly a better view than maybe I can give you at this point. But certainly John Lewis was one who in the gay community embraced it immediately. He saw the correlation between LGBTQ rights
and civil
the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and that everybody deserves a fair shot in America. It doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your religion, your ethnic background, or your sexuality, that it's all under one umbrella of fairness and decency and the rights in this country to be able to express your opinion and have your voice.
So interesting, and I didn't know that a lot of people, you think of that location as, sort of like a gathering spot and just like a cool view in Atlanta, and to see that on the list really speaks volumes to the fact that, hey, he had a huge hand in this, to the point where this is one of the locations in the city.
Well, you always saw him in the pride marches,
in
the parades over the years, and he was always in the community as well. He was, again, that's part of the 5th District, and I've either worked or lived in the 5th District most of my life here in Atlanta, and John Lewis was seen. He was not stealth like so many congressional representatives are, that you don't hear from them, you don't see them, you try to contact them and they issue some sort of statement sent to you via email. John Lewis did that too, but he was in the community, he was seen.
He was going to show up.
And he did show up, and he had time for people when they came up to him about, whether it's neighborhood needs, which, everyone talks about John Lewis in the context of social justice, and rightfully so. But when he was a city councilman, he was so cognizant and so aware of the different neighborhoods, of the needs of the neighborhoods. We have also talked about, he was an opponent of I-475, which was a 6-lane freeway. The government was going to run through Virginia Highland, through Morningside, Ponce Highland, into the old 4th Ward. It would change not only the tax base in this city for all times, but it would change who we are and how Atlanta is perceived above and beyond the city limits. Also, the canopy of trees would have been destroyed as well. You can thank John Lewis for the fact that you can have a lunch in Virginia Highland today, in Morningside at Alon's, have a marvelous sandwich sitting outside even in the midst of the pandemic, as opposed to having a Subway turkey Italiano at an exit ramp in your car. He saved the neighborhood. When the activists needed some strong arming, they needed some support, he was that man, and he was ostracized by many of his colleagues of the Atlanta City Council, and he stood tall. And those neighborhoods, if you love in-town Atlanta, and maybe you're a Republican, maybe you don't adhere to his politics, but he should always hold a special place in your heart, because it's because of John Lewis that your house is worth more than $15,000 in 2020, and these neighborhoods are bustling, and they are an absolute gem of the Atlanta experience.
And that's one of the neighborhoods you told me to explore for historical context when I first moved here, not only for entertainment purposes, but for just how much history is in that area. And as you guys can hear on our coverage, Jeff is our resident history book. which is
well,
why.
I'm older than all of you guys, and I've lived here a lot longer. So that's
and that's what we need.
That's my only role that I play here.
No, it is much bigger than that. It gives us depth and perspective that we would not have in moments like this when our community needs to know the importance of these moments. We see the crowd gathering there as they cross the Rainbow Crossing at 10th and Piedmont. Pretty sizable crowd there. That's always a pretty bustling area. And members of the LGBTQ community in Midtown and the 10th and Piedmont location. We're going to just stop for a moment here as the hearse pauses there in the middle of the intersection, Jeff.
You know, John Lewis and in town and Midtown, I mean, it puts a lump in your throat. I mean, he defines the area politically and socially and was always the go-to man when there were issues and you know, you had a charity event, you needed him at the Boys and Girls Club steak dinner. It was John Lewis who would show up.
That's what I love about it, how many smaller events. We're not talking about big national galas with, you know, $1,000 tickets. We're talking about the Boys and Girls Club steak dinner.
I sat next to him at the Boys and Girls Club steak dinner. It was called the Steak and Burger Dinner, and the adults would get steaks and the kids would get the burgers. No, I take that back. I have that mixed up. It was the adults who got the burgers and the kids got the steaks.
Okay, now you're talking.
That's what made it unique. But John Lewis always showed up at that Atlanta tradition, and he was always there to shake hands with kids and to give a few words. But you know, if you invited him to a charity event, you would see him. And I saw Congressman Lewis here in 11 Alive. I don't know, maybe it was a year ago we had him in here, and he came up to me and he goes, "What was that event you and I hosted back in the 1980s that was a charity auction, and you and I were guest auctioneers?" And I jumped in and said, "Yeah, the one where no one was paying us any mind or any attention."
Right.
And he goes,
like, do you know John Lewis is here?
That was the one. He goes, that was the one where we were trying to speak over the crowd. But it was another example of Congressman Lewis always available at, as you say, these charity events. You know, they didn't have to be the big black tie, you know, mayor mask ball kind of thing, you know, where everybody famous is in attendance. It was at these small, you know, charity events where they needed someone of his name and his recognition to help buoy it.
And that's where you feel the impact.
There. Yeah.
That's where you really feel the depth of your impact, especially in a time like this. Now, Jeff, I want to get your historic perspective on, we talk about him being involved in the LGBTQ community. Now they're en route to pass a local synagogue, and I remember you telling us the story the first night he passed away, just about his relationship and really bridging the gap with the Jewish community. Which
the great coalition in the 1960s between the Jewish community and the African American community of civil rights, and also bringing in other clergy. I mean, if you take a look at all of the old film or the old pictures from the marches, you know, pick it, whether it's Memphis, whether it's Selma, any of these places, anywhere around the country, you will always see clergy members, and the Jewish community always very, very involved.
Yeah.
And he has certainly always acknowledged that throughout his life, about that great tie between the two communities toward justice, towards civil rights, towards being treated equitably in this country. You know, when you talk about hate crimes, you talk about anti-Semitism, you talk about, you know, toward African Americans in this country as well, and Catholics as well. Also, were the targets of the KKK.
So meaningful. We're starting to hear from more people gathering outside the Capitol, where we find our Naima Abdullahi. She's with someone who has also been along for the trek. They were in Troy, Alabama, and now they're here in Atlanta. Naima, people are definitely putting on their travel gear to honor the late Congressman.
They really are, and this is a gentleman we met in Troy. He was also in Selma, and now he's in Atlanta.
For all civil rights, for all the people, for the people. John Lewis stood for the people. If you didn't know him, just by what he done, you felt you know him, or you known him. I tell you, I don't march this march and I don't walk this walk and I don't give him the glory just because he is John Lewis, but because of what he's done for me. Not only for me, but for my mother, my aunts, and my family. And what he's done already that will stand for my grandkids and my people and my people's people. I tell you, what we do today, from this day on, will show whether or not we're about being free. Not later, but want to be free now.
What inspired you to travel from city to city?
Inspired me from travel to city, the motivation of what he's done for me from city to city, where he's been, where he's gone, from Selma, all the way to Montgomery, all the way to Atlanta, all the way to the Capitol, what he's done for me. I don't just shout. I give him his due for his people and what he's done for his people and what his spirit will lie on and carry on. You may not know him, but if you know and find out what he's done for you, you're gonna feel like you've known him and what he's done. And if you don't see him, you'll never forget his spirit, what he carried and what he's done and what he stood for. Non-violence and for the rights of the people, not just his people, but all people.
How hard was non-violence during that time?
Well, non-violence had to be hard back in that time because you get the generation today, there is violence. We would have not been able to withstand what they were standing and how they was handled back in those days.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So yes, there are familiar faces that we've been able to see in Troy, in Selma. I'm sure there are a lot of people here who also traveled to DC. That sign over there that we showed you earlier, people are still signing that sign, and it says, "With deepest sympathy, honoring good trouble for our city of Atlanta." And everyone is grabbing a marker, a pen. The guy we were talking to earlier is sitting down, and he says he's going to be here all day. So that's the kind of tributes we're seeing outside of the Georgia State Capitol. The roads are still closed off. That flag is still flying high, and we're going to continue bringing you guys live coverage on air and online.
You know, we have used this sort of metaphor today of traveling, of seeing him in transit, and we spoke about him traveling as a young boy to Buffalo, New York, and seeing segregation firsthand from Troy, and how travel and motoring around has always been so much a part of his life. And something we really haven't talked a lot about today, but we need to, is, you know, in 1961, he was one of the 13 original Freedom Riders, and there were 7 whites, 6 blacks, who were determined to ride from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans. And at that time, you know, you couldn't do that in the South. And they sat next to each other. It was an incredible moment in American history, the Freedom Ride, which was originated by the Fellowship of Reconciliation, revived by James Farmer and the Congress of Racial Equality. And you know, Lewis was beaten so horribly in South Carolina at the age of 21. He was the first of the Freedom Riders to be assaulted when he was in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Tried to enter a whites-only waiting room, and he was attacked. His face was injured. They kicked him in the ribs, and then, you know, he had to be hospitalized for a few days. And within a week, he was back at it again. He was back on one of those buses, and he was riding into these lion's den of hatred and people who wanted to beat him simply because of the color of his skin and the fact that he was doing something that was not allowed by Jim Crow laws of the time.
And just kept on getting right back up and fighting and fighting and fighting, knowing that every situation he entered, being beaten was a possibility. That possibility was never taken off the table, but yet they kept going and they kept going. We've been talking about the mural being such an epicenter for the celebrations over the past week. That's where we find our Joe Hankey. That's going to be one of the areas where the family actually gets out of the car. Joe, what are you seeing right now there as they head your way?
Well, Aisha, we have the intersection of Auburn and Jesse Hill behind my shoulder right now. The mural, as you mentioned, on the other side of the camera right now. We're focused on this intersection. This is where people are starting to anxiously await the motorcade. People have been coming out here since 10 o'clock this morning, taking pictures with the mural, asking what the route is, when they'll be arriving with the motorcade. We're starting to hear some sirens in the distance, so they're getting close here. Thankfully, we've found a window in the rain, because as you mentioned, we are expecting the family to get out of the motorcade and spend a moment here at the mural of the late Congressman. Right now, we seeing motorcycle cops from APD, the front end of the motorcade. They're starting to clear the intersection here. We've talked with some of these folks out here earlier this morning. We're seeing moms with their young children coming out here. We're seeing people of all ages come out here. Everyone just wanting to get a glimpse of this motorcade, especially here at the mural. This has been in Atlanta. This has been the epicenter of the John Lewis Memorial. Ever since his passing, people coming out here dropping off flowers, people with poster boards, putting them on the mural with John Lewis's famous quotes about voting rights and the push for civil rights. But right now, this intersection, it was people talking out here. All of a sudden, it's very silent now as everyone's been waiting for this moment. They're looking down Auburn there in the direction of the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church and the King Center, two landmarks. We expect Lewis to come past. Everyone's looking in that direction, trying to gauge when the motorcade will come past here. Aisha, right now, just waiting for that moment.
All right, Joe Hankey, thank you. They've passed the Chabad in-town synagogue. Seems like this motorcade, Jeff, I know the route is very well planned out, but it's moving pretty fast.
It is moving quick, and I guess that's one of the upsides of the pandemic is Atlanta traffic not quite as notorious as it normally is during better days, but it has been moving quickly. And we talked about this a couple of hours, but I think it bears repeating. If you're just joining us, you know, that mural down there, which has become such a center point for so many Atlantans after his death and certainly during his life, when you see it, it gives you pause for reflection about the history of the city and certainly the legacy and the trajectory of his life as well. But right by that mural is the boarded up Butler Street YMCA, which has such a remarkable legacy in our city. It would be so great to see if somehow or other the Butler Street YMCA could be revived, reconstituted in some way, because it's there that Dr. King, learned how to swim. Vernon Jordan, the great civil rights leader as well, learned how to swim there. And its political history here about being the place for the Hungry Club Forum that always happened. It was the Black Power structure where politicians would come and they would listen to these politicians that would come their way. It was also where Atlanta police, the first African-American policemen, were unable to dress in APD headquarters, and it was there at the Butler Street YMCA that they would change for their shifts to help protect the city. So it is a place of great meaning and great fortitude toward the direction of the city over the decades. Brennan Keefe is joining us now, and he is at the mural right now as we see the hearse has stopped.
Yes, hi guys. I'm actually also piloting the drone, but don't worry, the camera's being operated by Lindsay Basie with our investigative team. We're just going to transition over another building here, so we're a little bit safer in the drone shot. I don't know if you're seeing the drone shot at this point, but we're just transitioning to the other side of the street so we can get the perspective. It's really a moving moment, to be here at this time. Just to be standing here right now, I'm 4 feet from the hearse, and it's just extraordinary to be here at this moment because John Lewis meant so much to so many people here in Atlanta and to the civil rights movement in general. It looks like they're going to move on here. There was talk of the family getting out here. Let me transition the drone back so we can see the perspective with the motorcade and his mural in the same shot. It's just, again, there's these moments, I've been doing this for 30 years, there's just these pinch yourself moments where you realize you were just so lucky to have covered someone like this in your lifetime who has done so much for so many, and all of the notes on the memorial. I'm going to bring the drone over a little bit, get a little bit closer to the memorial. All the notes that are written on the memorial down here, or I should say the mural that has become a memorial, the notes are all about selfless sacrifice. They're all about what John Lewis has done for the people, not for himself. Especially in a time of such polarized politics, we're reminded of those who would cause good trouble to make the world really a better place. And as we tilt up to show his iconic face, really this mural just captures it, doesn't it? And then the word hero. And I'm going to fly away now at high speed so you can get the perspective here of all the people who are out here right now honoring this man. And look at the motorcade just keeps going. These are people who have come out to silently pay tribute to one of the giants. Really, as you remember, one of the youngest members of the civil rights movement, the youngest person to speak at the March on Washington, at the Lincoln Memorial, and now here passing on and being remembered for really just all of that selfless sacrifice. There are no words. There are these pictures, though, and these are the pictures of a hero, a man returning home. He may be from Alabama, but he adopted Atlanta and the people of Georgia, not only in Congress, but also as a brother, as someone who was there. Look at all the pictures that have been posted to social media of pictures of people with John Lewis. He would always stop and take a picture. And it wasn't about campaigning, for Congress. It was about being there. And in that moment, when you would talk to John Lewis, you were the most important person in his world for that moment. There are very few people like that you meet who can really captivate not just an audience, but make you feel just as important, even if you know that he is a giant and was a giant among men.
Brendan Keith, monitoring our drone coverage, giving us some very great images from the sky. Brendan and Lindsay Basie, thank you so much for that coverage there. A very great perspective. Our Joe Hankey, who's on the ground, said although the family was slated to stop at the mural, we do know that the plane was a little bit delayed, so in an effort to probably, really keep on schedule here as people are waiting at the Capitol, the family did not get out of the vehicle. They didn't get off the bus, but Joe Hankey said he could see them waving at the mural as they passed by. And Jeff, now we're really starting to hit some of those historical downtown Atlanta sort of views as they get ready to pass through the historic district.
Yeah, we saw them pass by the SCLC headquarters, and we've seen many of those pictures. When you go by there, you'll always sort of close your eyes and envision Dr. King, that famous picture outside off of Auburn Avenue, and all of the great leaders of the civil rights movement passing through the SCLC, Ralph David Abernathy, of course, and Reverend Lowry. It's one of those things in Atlanta you just want to see as you make sure that you understand the civil rights history that always runs through downtown and through Auburn Avenue. Naima Abdullahi joins us from downtown right now. Naima?
Right now we are at the intersection of Washington and Mitchell. As you can see from our camera, honor guard members are on outside of the state capitol. There are 10 of them. In front of them, a moving flag. I mean, that flag is just so, it really moves the spirit to see this moment really come into fruition and to see it unfold in the last few hours. We also want to show you the crowd that is gathering. Hold on one second, the motorcade is driving by. And I didn't want to talk over that moment because the moment speaks for itself. This is a way to honor a legend, an icon. APD is doing their part to honor him. And we see the honor guard outside. We also see cars right behind APD. And it's hard to see from where we're standing right now.
All right, we're seeing the motorcade here stopping at the state capitol, and the motorcycle patrol of APD right there in front as well. You know, when you see this police presence here, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with former Mayor Sam Massell a couple of months ago when he was talking about being the president of City Council, which was called the Board of Aldermen at the time, and Dr. King's funeral was making its way in that area, and that there had been a moment of silence he told me about, and he remembered seeing all of the Atlanta police who were along the state capitol along with the Georgia State Patrol, and it certainly harkens back to a different time in April of 1968 and a different event under much different circumstances as well.
And to see how law enforcement is now honoring this man. He was once beaten at the hands of law enforcement officers, especially the most devastating that we recall is Bloody Sunday in Selma, and now to see them honoring him in this way. We do see the family getting off of the bus as we get ready for the ceremony inside of the state capitol. If you missed the motorcade, we do want to remind you about the hours for the public viewing, as Congressman Lewis will lie in state there at the state capitol in Georgia. So the public viewing portion, that's going to go from 3 until 7 p.m. there at the Capitol. But then again, it's going to take a little break, but it's going to pick back up in anticipation for how many people may come out. They're going to pick back up from 8:30 to 10 p.m. for the public viewing. If you want to go out and honor the congressman with your family, or maybe take your kids by, you're going to have multiple opportunities for a few hours throughout the day to get that done. And I think if this is going to be anything like it was in D.C., Jeff, it was quite the showing with the amount of people that wanted to come and see the late Congressman lie in state.
And if you want to take your family, if you're wondering how it would work and where you should go, let's tell you that you should enter through the Mitchell Street entrance at the Capitol, and you need to bring a government-issued ID, whether it's your driver's license, maybe you have a passport, but you do have to have ID. You also have to wear a mask, as mandated by the city. And if you don't have one, one will be provided upon entry. Everybody will have their temperature checked, and everybody has to have that temperature below 100.4 Fahrenheit. So there are some rules of engagement if you're planning on viewing Congressman Lewis at the state capitol. You again have to have a mask, you have to have an ID, and your temperature will be taken.
Looks like we're pretty much back on schedule, Jeff, as that ceremony is set to start at 2 p.m. So the motorcade cruised right on through. It's about 1:48 right now. Expected to speak at that special ceremony inside the Capitol is Governor Kemp, and he's going to present the Georgia flag to his son, John Miles Lewis. That's going to be a very special moment. We will also hear remarks from Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has a plethora of John Lewis stories. It's been very interesting to see the mayor's social media with the amount of photos that they have shared over the years as well. And then later on tonight at 7 o'clock, we can anticipate a very special ceremony from his fraternity, the Brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, a historically black fraternity that Congressman Lewis was a proud member of for years. He is one of the members of their highest ranking members of Phi Beta Sigma. We talked to their international president yesterday to talk about his involvement and how he always came to their events whenever he was called upon. Back on the ground now, Naeem Abdullahi, tell us what you're seeing as we get ready to prepare for that 2 p.m. ceremony there at the Capitol. Your crowd has definitely increased here.
They definitely have increased. We've seen people getting out of the bus. Family members are here, representatives are here, and the Willie A. Watkins Funeral Home services are here. Everything seems to be going on schedule, just like you said, Aisha. 2 p.m., a special ceremony proceeding where Lewis will be inside the state to be honored. Governor Kemp will be inside, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. 2:30, a private ceremony for Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. He's also going to be honored. And the public from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. will be able to access inside to also honor him, followed by Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Omega service that will be also given to him. So this is the beginning stages of that well-deserved ceremony inside the Georgia State Capitol for a man who spent decades representing not only this city but in this state from 1987. Leading the 5th District, and then prior to that being a representative for Atlanta City Council. There's a lot of emotion right now. People are lined up, filed one after another, waiting for their moment to get in, and we're going to make sure that we keep following this at this moment.
All right, Naima, thank you. We're going to take a moment of silence and let us all take in the moment together as the casket is unloaded by the honor guard and taken into the Georgia State Capitol, where the late Congressman Lewis will lie in state through the night. Each crowd at each location where we have welcomed the hearse of Congressman John Lewis by the Honor Guard really has a different reaction. Here at the Georgia State Capitol, the late Congressman was welcomed with applause and cheers from people as his body was taken into the Capitol, where it will lie in state at the Rotunda through 10 o'clock tonight, Jeff. Very, very special moment when you think about how many years he served this state, and for this service to be concluding here in Atlanta.
And you know, so much of this has been about symbolism, and also in death. The symbolism has been great with Congressman Lewis. He will be buried at Southview Cemetery, and that's in Jonesboro. If you're unfamiliar with it, some people may be, it is a cemetery with its roots back to 1886, when 9 black businessmen got together. They were tired of the fact that African Americans could not be buried in white cemeteries in the South. And so they established their own. And there are 80,000 African Americans who are buried in Southview. And it's famous for when Dr. King was initially buried there before he was taken back to the King Center off of Auburn Avenue. Dr. Benjamin Mays also is buried there, but Southview is a place of Atlanta Black history, of ancestors, of descendants, of so many who are buried there that have such a huge part in the life and times of the city.
That is so fitting, and a man who is taking this legacy even in death. He's teaching us so much about what he fought for and the reason why he kept on getting back up and taking those blows. We are starting to get this inside view. This is Governor Kemp and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms as we set to have the ceremony inside of the Capitol. Leading the casket of the late Congressman, Governor Kemp and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. The Honor Guard is getting the casket in place. Kemp and Bottoms will be speakers here at this ceremony, a very touching moment where Governor Kemp will present the Georgia flag to the son of Congressman Lewis, John Miles Lewis. We are going to bring you this ceremony live here as it gets underway. And Jeff, I don't care how many times you see the Honor Guard do their thing with the American flag draped casket, it is just so precise. It is so symbolic.
I always think seeing the flag on the casket of John Lewis is particularly poignant when he was trying to establish simple things like the right to vote, the ability to eat in a restaurant and use a restroom, to use a gas station, small things, riding a bus that were more than small, that were giant, that were huge, that changed everything in the United States. But that flag symbolized everything that he fought for in his life, the promise of what America was, but wasn't delivered to African Americans.
We're going to pause now as we watch the casket take its place.
the ceremony pretty much on time right now, Aisha. In the next few minutes, we will see and hear its beginning with Governor Kemp offering remarks and then presenting the flag of the state to John Miles Lewis, Congressman Lewis's son, and then Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms will offer remarks. And the remarks from the governor and the mayor are scheduled to be between 3 and 5 minutes. After that, State Representative Calvin Smyer will offer his remarks as well. The program expected to end in about 20 minutes, so it's not going to be lengthy. At 2:30, there will be a private ceremony for the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. That's expected to go about 30 minutes. And then again, at 3 o'clock, about 57 minutes from now, the public viewing will begin, and that will commence until 10 o'clock tonight.
We saw that crowd out there with Naima Abdullahi, people already lining up, not only to see the casket enter the state capitol, but to be able to come in and pay their respects. And that's going to be happening from 3 until 7 o'clock tonight, and then again from 8:30 until 10. And just a sign of the times that we are in right now, we want to make this accessible to everyone and make sure that everyone has a pleasant experience if they decide to head out this evening with their families. If you are a member of the public coming out to the viewing, you have to enter through the Mitchell Street entrance at the Capitol. Make sure that you bring a government-issued ID, and you have to wear a mask. If you don't have one, don't worry. They will be providing masks there at the Capitol. Everyone is also going to have their temperature checked, and in order to get in, your temperature must be below 100.4 degrees. So if you plan on heading out, please keep that in mind. We want to make sure that this is a very pleasant moment for everyone to take in this very historic time, and that you are able to enter without issue. We do see people now coming back in to be seated as we get ready to start the public portion of the ceremony that we will bring you here live. It's slated to only last about 20 to 25 minutes or so. And right now everything's sort of back on schedule, the schedule that was released to us here to bring you all. And if you have to run, if you have to step away, but you don't want to miss anything, we are streaming live right now on the 11 Alive YouTube channel if you want to catch us there, or to rewatch any portion of the coverage that we've been bringing you here since the noon hour. So many family members who may not even be from the Atlanta area now getting to take in the moment to see how his adoptive state is going to remember him, the state that he served for more than 30 years.
Inside the state capitol right now, which was built in 1889, it's undergone a number of transformations. 1958 is when they redid the gold dome using Dahlonega gold. They had resealed it with leaf. Also, in the past few years, in 1997, the House and Senate chambers were restored to try to create more of its history, with an 1889 appearance with decorations and color schemes. If you have not been inside the state capitol, it is something that you should take your family, take your children, and let them explore, let them look at all of the paintings of the governors. And there is so much to see and so much to take in.
And again, on that list slated to bring us remarks, Governor Brian Kemp, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and Representative Calvin Smyer is going to provide remarks as well before a private ceremony for the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. Everyone is getting in place. Let's go back outside as they get situated inside the rotunda. Let's go back outside to our Naima Abdullahi. Naima, cheers from the crowd as the casket was being taken down and loaded into the state capitol. And I see now from your live picture, even more people anticipating that public viewing that's going to start here a little bit after 3.
They're patiently waiting for their moment to see a man and to look at a man who changed and transformed this nation. Atlanta's favorite adopted son. We all know who Atlanta's favorite son is, and that's Dr. King. Atlanta's favorite adopted son and Atlanta's favorite son both shared the same dream, and that dream changed this nation. No, he wasn't born here. He was proud of Troy. He helped transform Selma, but once he arrived here and called Atlanta home, he became one of our own, and we've been waiting all week for his ceremonial return to Atlanta as his final resting place, where he'll be buried right next to his wife, the love of his life, who passed away 8 years ago. John Lewis right now was taken inside by Willie A. Watkins Funeral Home Services, and the line right now is getting long. It'll continue getting long because this is something that's going to last for a few hours. And from an emotional perspective, because I was in Troy and I was in Selma, there's nothing in life that can prepare you for that moment when you look at him. And I was inside the service in Troy, and I got close and I looked at him, and I was thankful that he's no longer in pain, because we have to remember he was battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I was thankful he was no longer in pain, and thankful that in his 80 years of life, he's been able to make such a big impact alongside so many other giants who passed away that he's now reunited with. So the crowd here will continue getting bigger. People want their moment, rain or shine. They said they would still be here. And that's something that everyone is feeling, the energy and the spirit of the movement.
Naima, so tell us about the operation of the crowd. We see a few umbrellas and we see the line sort of moving along. It seems like it's very uniform, and this is going to be a really smooth process. So we don't want people to be turned off from the crowd, because it looks like it's going to move pretty good.
Right, and if it's anything similar to Troy, because I don't have access to go inside, but if it's similar to the service in Troy, I will say that that moment where you are right in front of Congressman John Lewis lasts about 5 to 10 seconds. It moves rapidly, but you do get your moment and your chance to honor him one last time, to say job well done and thank you. The number one thing people say when they approach the casket is thank you. There is so much gratitude for what he has been able to done. So yes, it does seem very organized, it does seem very uniform, and the line is moving right now, and as it continues to wrap around the corner, it will continue to remain that way as well.
Naima, any sense of how large the crowd is? It's always difficult to guess numbers, but what would you say?
At this moment, considering that it's not only around Mitchell, but also on the side of Washington, I would say about 100 people. It's pretty early on. I'm pretty sure it's going to continue growing. And there are people from all age groups, people who learned about John Lewis in the history books and never encountered him. You see 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. You see people from the generation that, made the generation that changed this nation, people who were growing up in the 60s and the 70s, people from all racial backgrounds. There is a sense of unity from all races here. It doesn't matter your background. I just talked to a woman from Ethiopia, and she said, she's lived out her American dream because of the sacrifices he made. So once she came to the States, she was able to really, live out her potential because of the sacrifices that were made during the movement. So it's an international crowd. It's a crowd that is very diverse from different age groups, and it'll continue being that way because Atlanta is one of the most diverse cities in our country.
Sometimes when great leaders die, there is that sort of institutional knowledge of the deceased, meaning we knew him as a leader. But John Lewis was so much a part of Atlanta life for so many decades, whether it's running for city council or he was unsuccessful in running for Congress initially in his career, and then of course wins 16 times that he's running for the 5th Congressional District. I talked with Councilman Julian Bond, who was the godson of John Lewis, and the councilman told me, Michael Julian Bond, and the councilman told me, he goes, John Lewis was such a great godfather to me that he would take me and some other kids to Braves games, and he was always organized. He would wear a suit when he would go to the Braves game, and he would get a giant Rich's shopping bag. And for those of you who are listening right now, are probably old enough to remember Rich's. You remember what those big shopping bags used to be like? They would put your stuff in, but he would take these big white Rich's bags and he would cook hot dogs. And he would make sure that the kids had all the food, all the hot dogs, all the goodies, all the drinks, and the kids were angry with Mr. Lewis because they wanted to eat all of the food at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, but he was always, as Michael Julian Bond told me, always in charge, taking care, thinking, what needed to be done, even on small issues like, taking food to a Braves game when the Braves used to let you do those kinds of things. But he was always a man ahead of everybody, and that certainly is the hallmark of his life as well.
And I'm sure we are getting ready to hear more fond memories. We are getting ready to start the ceremony now, where Governor Kemp and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms will speak. Let's take you inside the state capitol. Listen in.
Governor Kemp and First Lady Mrs. Kemp, to Madam Mayor Lance Bottoms, to Dean Smyrie, and to this humble family, the Lewis family, and all who have assembled here today as guests. This is a great day. This is a great day. Today, as we gather in somber celebration of the life and legendary legacy of Congressman John Robert Lewis, a gentle giant of a man, there is a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. Congressman Lewis, born to sharecroppers, who was called by God, and he rose to greatness as a gentle man. He fought against those who sought to oppress rather than provide opportunity. He stood against those who sought to deny rather than ensure equitable rights among all humanity, and worked against those who sought to divide and conquer rather than to sow seeds of hope and unity. Congressman Lewis, the gentle giant of a man, walked as he marched and prayed that others could live a better life where inalienable rights are truths that are self-evident for everyone. Congressman Lewis, a gentle giant man, spoke truth to power as a prophet ordained and called by God, following the footsteps of Moses, Martin, and another named John. Congressman Lewis laid down his life for all of us, and he taught us how to get into good trouble. In the book of Micah, the 6th chapter, the 8th verse, the question is asked, and what does the Lord require of us all? God's reply is to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before your God. So today we gather in somber celebration to celebrate Congressman John Lewis, our great giant of a man who heeded God's call. And as one of God's chosen prophets, he lived by showing us how to get into good trouble by acting justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly before his God. Let us pray. God of justice, love, and mercy, we come thanking you for the life of our dearly beloved Congressman John Robert Lewis, who knew you for himself. We come, oh God, asking that you put your loving arms around this family, giving them the comfort of knowing that everything is going to be all right. Giving them the comfort of knowing that you are the same God, Lord, who wrapped your loving arms around daddy, brother, uncle, and friend, the same God who without you, we would be like a ship without a sail. So today, oh God, we thank you. We thank you for the many lives that our beloved Congressman Lewis touched, thanking you for calling him to rise to greatness as a beacon of light, a symbol of hope, a change agent for the world, and the moral consciousness of our great nation. For we know that he is now on the mountaintop with you, Lord, and for those who believe, we shall see him again. Oh, happy day, Lord, that we can say thank you. Thank you for sending your prophet John, and because he lived, lives are so much better. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, because he lived, the fight will continue for voting rights. Because he lived, the fight will continue for equity and justice for all. And because he lived, speaking truth to power is not just another cliche, but real trouble for us to follow. Thank you, God, for sending our gentle giant, the moral conscience of America, in the life of Congressman John Robert Lewis. And to all who love the Lord, join me in saying amen, amen, and amen. Bless you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, Marty, the girls, and I join countless Georgians and Americans in mourning the loss of Congressman John Lewis, a titan of the civil rights movement, a beloved Georgian, an American hero, and a friend to all who sought a better, fairer, more united society. Congressman John Lewis changed our country in profound and immeasurable ways, and his legacy of passionate service is truly unmatched. As mentioned, the son of sharecroppers, John Lewis felt his calling at a young age and devoted every waking moment to the fight for justice, equality, access, and opportunity for all people, no matter their skin color. He built quite a reputation along the way, and the good trouble that led to real change, inspired a country, and changed this world. No matter where you go, everyone knows the name of John Lewis. And more importantly, they know his record of standing up, speaking out, and shaking up the status quo. At home in the 5th District, this legendary freedom fighter was a friendly neighborhood face, serving his constituents selflessly and with open arms. In our country's most trying moments, Congressman John Lewis taught us the lesson of joyful, steadfast commitment to ideals bigger than one man or one movement. When faced with fierce, violent opposition on a bridge in Selma, Alabama, John Lewis stared evil and injustice in the eye. He didn't turn back that Sunday because he was grounded in a deep belief that our worth was given by God, not by man. His example taught us that we have nothing to lose and everything to gain by working together and loving one another. And even today, as our country faces a public health crisis and new challenges rooted in injustice, I know that the example left behind by Congressman Lewis, the man who literally crossed the aisle to embrace retiring Republican Senator Johnny Isakson, will inspire all of us to do the hard, necessary work to overcome our shared challenges and emerge stronger. The Congressman put it best by saying, "We love our country, we love our democratic society, so we have to move our feet." As we mourn his passing, we all should recommit ourselves to the principles he fought for, our country's core foundation in liberty, freedom, and justice for all. America and the state of Georgia will be forever stronger, freer, and more just because of Congressman John Lewis. But we must do our part to build on his work and keep his legacy alive. He urged us to love one another, to walk and to work together despite our differences, and push our state and our nation toward a better tomorrow. His leadership in the civil rights movement and more than 30-year career in public service embodies our highest ideals. And we are each, as Georgians and Americans, better for his work. So, and now, in honor of his memory, we have to move our feet. May his words, actions, and legacy continue to serve as our country's conscience. The prayers of my family and all Georgians are with Congressman Lewis's family, his loved one, his staff who worked so hard on his behalf, and all of us that he inspired. God bless you all, and may God continue to bless this great state and nation.
Governor Kemp, Dean Smyrie, John Miles, and to the family. Some 85 years ago, the great Langston Hughes wrote of the promise and pain of America. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream, the dreamer's dream. Let it be that great, strong land of love, where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. Some 5 years after these words were written, a descendant of the enslaved, a son of sharecroppers, was born, and the words of the Lord rested upon his life. Before I formed you, I knew you in the womb. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. And this prophet, our prophet, called upon America to be America again. And so we gather here today in what was once a stronghold of the Confederacy together, because this prophet lived and this prophet named John Lewis loved. Like so many, I have a deep and abiding admiration for Congressman Lewis, and I've had it my entire life. I would see his lovely wife, Lillian, when she came into my mother's hair salon to have her hair done. She was a beautiful and brilliant woman whose love and affection for John Miles was evident in every conversation that she had. I knew Congressman Lewis as the man who worked in SNCC with my Aunt Ruby Doris Smith Robinson. She died at the age 26, leaving a 2-year-old son behind. Each time I saw the congressman, his eyes glistened with tears when he spoke of her. He told me stories of being beaten with her and going to jail together in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He always made sure to ask about her son, Teray. Although an Alabama legend, an Atlanta icon, and an American hero, Congressman Lewis to take time to let me know, to let all of us know that we mattered to him. And so I don't think it was happenstance that in his final public appearance, he visited the Black Lives Matters mural in Washington, D.C. And it was around this same time that I joined him on a Zoom call with President Obama and the Obama Foundation for My Brother's Keeper. Until his last days, he was calling upon America to be America again in his words and his deeds. I was deeply moved a couple of days ago when his Chief of Staff, Michael Collins, shared with me that the Congressman was intently watching the news of Atlanta and proud of the leadership that's been shown. And so, Governor, when the good trouble continues, know that it is with the blessings of Congressman Lewis. And although the fight for liberty and equality continues, Congressman Lewis reminded us to be hopeful, to be optimistic, and to never lose a sense of hope. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be the land where every man is free.
I'm State Representative Calvin Smyrie, and I am deeply, deeply honored to be here today. To Governor Kemp, to Mayor Bottoms, to Representative Bennett and the members of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, to all of our constitutional officers, our judicial branch, members of the General Assembly, and all elected officials, ladies and gentlemen. To John, to you and your family, the entire John Lewis family, welcome to the rotunda of the Georgia State Capitol, where on today we pay our fond respects and show our admiration to a fallen hero and often called the conscience of the Congress, and to bid him farewell. We heard inside, and we mourn the loss of Congressman John Lewis, yet we cherish the life he lived and the contributions he made to humanity. We thank him for his sacrifices and all that he gave that others would enjoy a better life. He was a fearless warrior in real life. We all have stories of personal charm, his greatness, his many struggles, and the strength of his character. A giant redwood tree has fallen in the Georgia forest of life. Having been elected in 1974, over 46 years ago, brings me and my mind to the events of March 7th, 1965, Bloody Sunday. John Lewis paid a personal heavy price on the settlement of Montgomery March, as he was badly beaten and thought he had died. It was because of his endless courage, his commitment to the struggle, and getting in good trouble that gave us the opportunity to seek public office. History records that it was the events of that dreaded day that led to the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which propelled and opened the way for African Americans to seek public office and bring needed change to creating good public policy which determines our quality of life. He always stated that voters were so precious. People died for our right to vote. John Lewis, the son of a sharecropper, was told, "Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble." He was inspired by Rosa Parks when he met her at 17 years old, and a year later, meeting Martin Luther King Jr. at 18 years of age. Those two people inspired John Lewis to get in the way and find necessary good trouble. In the emotional John Lewis speech that was played during the U.S. Capitol Memorial, which brought tears to my eyes, he gave and left us a mandate to stand up, speak out, a mandate to find a way to get in the way and make our state and country a better place. Keep the faith. We're not going back. We are going forward. We must keep the faith, and that's our moral obligation. Never become bitter. Never hate. We are one people. There may be some setbacks, but we all must keep the faith. Never give up. Never give up. That's our calling. John, in your memory and as a legacy, you will continue to motivate us, inspire us, and be a solid strength of source. You will be missed, but we will cherish the memories and the moments. You left us with many challenges to seek answers and certain principles to guide us. Your mark on America is forever established and recorded. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, and I quote, "If a man has not discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live." John Robert Lewis found something to die for. Freedom. Oh, freedom. The loss of John Lewis reminds us to never be afraid of where we are going when we know God is going with us. God be with you, John Lewis. Job well done, thy faithful servant. Job well done. Our closing prayer, Lord of all, we praise you for all you have entered into thy rest and reached the promised land where you are seen face to face. Lord, give us grace to follow in thy footsteps as thou follow in the way of your Son. Thank you. Thank you for the memory of those you have called to yourself. By each memory, turn our hearts from things seen to things unseen, and lead us till we come to the eternal rest you have prepared for your people. Through your name we pray. Amen. If everyone could remain seated until the family exits the rotunda. Thank you for your cooperation.
State Representative Calvin Smyre, the Democrat from Columbus, the Dean of the Georgia House of Representatives, first elected at the age of 26 in 1974. In 1987, he was the floor leader of that legislative session. He was the first African American to do so since Reconstruction. His fingerprints have certainly been large in our state, in the legislative branch, for generations. And a very moving speech today, Aisha, about Congressman John Lewis, his place in our state, his place in our country, and his place in our hearts.
Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and Governor Kemp providing words also. A very significant moment there too, as we saw Mayor Bottoms exiting with her son. Throughout these last couple of months, as Atlanta has really experienced very historic, pivotal moments, Mayor Bottoms has been sure to include her children in this movement and in this moment, and to think that, you know, being that age and being able to just think about how young Congressman Lewis was, Jeff, when he got involved in movements like this. And so I do think we were going to continue to see a similar theme throughout the evening as that public visitation gets underway here, coming up in about 25 minutes, of how many young people are going to be taking this moment in and just learning about the depth of this history and truly what this moment means for the nation.
And remember that Congressman Lewis was immersed into civil rights at a very young age.
Early, about 14.
Again, yes, and his first trip outside of Troy, Alabama was to Buffalo, New York with his uncle, and it's there that he saw African Americans were able to move in institutions in the Northeast, whether it's the bus or eating or gas stations or any of that he could not do in his native Alabama. At the age of 17, he first met Rosa Parks, and a year later, at 18, he met Dr. King. So again, you're talking about the symbolism of youth, whether it's Mayor Bottoms' children or Governor Kemp's young daughters, maybe not quite so young anymore, but as they have grown older, have immersed them into the ways of Atlanta life and Georgia life, and the challenges certainly that have been ahead. But it is that indoctrination at a very young age that really stirs so many lives toward these careers immersed in social justice.
And then you think about, you know, we really see Congressman Lewis, like we get a snapshot of him as an adult, not knowing that being beaten and a part of the Freedom Riders and numerous protests and more than 40 arrests. This was happening at such a young age. And then the career went on in politics for more than 3 decades. And so to get started that early, and it doesn't matter how late you get started either, the impact is there. You can have the impact if you have the heart to serve. And I think what we saw from him was the heart to truly, truly serve. And when it's that genuine and when it's that pure, that's when you get a life that's celebrated like this.
I always found myself, when I was around Congressman Lewis, I would look at his hands, or I would look at his eyes or his face, and I would think about where he had been, whether it was with the Freedom Riders almost getting killed in Rock Hill, South Carolina, or speaking on the March of Washington, on Washington, to all of those pictures of him in the Oval Office with President Kennedy, with President Johnson. I mean, it's someone who has seen all these remarkable things that we have read about all of our lives in seeing these pictures, and here was the last real tie to all of these events. And Ambassador Young is, you know, maybe our last tie to all of this. But,
yeah.
But those two men, I always look at their hands, and I just look at them closely to think where they have been and what they have done in their lives that are so extraordinary, that
it
are
really tells
just
a story.
Impossible to comprehend, really.
Yeah, it really tells a story, and we are just peeling back the pages of his story and really learning so much about his journey and all that it entailed. And when we think about the mural and we think about the renaming of John Lewis Freedom Parkway, these are things that happened while he was here to be honored. I'm sure many things will crop up after his life has ended now.
I think that's a good point that you make. We're going to see, I think, a flurry of activity around the country of John Lewis's name being put on high schools, grade schools, bridges.
Already in Virginia, the school name.
That's right.
It was Robert E. Lee High School in Virginia, and now it has been named John Lewis High School, and that's going to start as early as this school year. So we're going to start seeing that name more nationwide versus what we've seen in Atlanta over the years. And so I think that's very interesting, but I do love that in Atlanta, he was able to get that here. He was able to be a part of the mural dedication. He was able to be a part of the highway renaming, not just afterwards, but for so many people, people always use the phrase, give people their flowers while they're here. Right. I think that was truly done in his life, and that is so, so important as we celebrate it now.
I think it really changed too. When I think about Congressman Lewis, I think in the 1980s, when so many of the civil rights leaders were part of our lives here in Atlanta, whether it's Fred Shuttlesworth or it's the Reverend Orange, Hosea Williams, Ralph David Abernathy, Coretta Scott King, Joseph Lowery, his wife, who was also the president of the SCLC women's side. But I think once the early 90s or mid 90s, I think there came to be more of a national realization of the meaning of John Lewis's life on American society. And I think he became this sort of figure that everybody was appreciative of, that nonviolence, love, and trying to create social change through government. I mean, all of these honorable pursuits through a time that was oftentimes dishonorable.
And it has been a very honorable day here in the city of Atlanta. It will continue with the public viewing getting underway. You see people there in the bottom left-hand corner already lining up outside of the Georgia State Capitol. That is set to kick off at 3, maybe a little bit after. There's going to be a private ceremony with the Congressional Black Caucus first, but you can already start getting in line there outside the state capitol from 3 until 7. And then again this evening from 8:30 until 10 p.m., your opportunity to pay your final respects as the body of Congressman John Lewis lies in state there at the state capitol in Georgia. That is going to do it for our coverage. You can continue to watch replays of coverage on our 11 Alive YouTube channel if you missed any portions of today. We'll also join you back here for the news at 5 and 6 with continuing coverage, remembering Representative John Lewis. For myself, Aisha Howard, and Jeff Hullinger, we thank you so much for joining our special coverage. We will see you back here tonight at 5.
Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11 Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11 Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11 Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11 Alive News Prime Time, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11 Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11 Alive is where Atlanta speaks.